our afternoon play, which is introduced by Molly Sedgwick.
What you are about to hear is a true story. It's the story of my mother, Dolly Shepherd. The extraordinary thing is that I have no recollection of her actually telling me about her adventures, but I've known the stories all my life. She was a wonderful mother to me, but she was also a daredevil parachutist in Edwardian days. It all began when she was just 16 years old, in 1903, when she wanted to hear Sousa, the American March King, who was due to give 2 concerts at the Alexandra Palace. She couldn't get a ticket, but she was determined to hear him. So she applied for a job as a waitress. To her surprise, and delight of course, once the concert was over, Sousa came to one of her tables. And with him came 2 other well-known personalities at the Alexandra Palace, as it was called. Monsieur Gaudron, the celebrated balloonist and parachutist, and Samuel Franklin Cody, who then was building kites for the government. Well, after the departure of Sousa, the other 2 gentlemen continued to go to her table, and gradually she found herself involved a little bit in their conversation.
Good afternoon, Monsieur Gaudron. What can I get for you today?
Good afternoon, Miss Shepherd. Tea, if you please, and some cakes. Mr. Cody will be joining me shortly.
Would that be 2 Bath and 2 Chelsea buns as usual, sir?
Oh, you know us too well, yes. Oh, there's Cody.
Good afternoon, Miss Captain Gaudron.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cody. I'll go and get your teas right away.
Cody, you look as if your heart is stacking up residence in those fine boots of yours. I hear you shot your wife last night?
Yeah, well, it was only a graze. I must have shot that egg off her head 100 times. She must have moved.
Here we are, good and strong, just as you like it. Shall I pour?
Go ahead, Miss Dolly.
So, how's the good lady?
Oh, Mrs. Cody will be just fine. She's just gotten a little skittish about doing the show tonight.
If you give her time, she'll come back to it, no?
Sure, but, the show can't go on tonight or even tomorrow.
What are you going to do?
I really don't know. Just can't think of anybody who'd have the nerve.
I'll do it.
What? You really mean that?
Yes, of course I mean it. If that helps you out. I'll come tonight.
What? Gee, that's a relief. Thank you.
Well, problem solved.
When the time came, I stepped up from the audience, trying to look as unconcerned as I could. Cody led me to my spot on the stage and placed a resin egg on my head. He told me to keep quite still, which was a little unnecessary. Then he took up his position about 15 feet in front of me. Slowly, he raised his rifle to his shoulder and took aim. This is it, I thought. But then his son walked out of the wings and proceeded to blindfold his father. I hadn't expected that. Hardly daring to breathe, I kept my eyes on the marksman. And the egg shattered into fragments all around me. In his gratitude, Cody asked me if I'd like to see some of the balloons and kites he was developing. It was an offer I jumped at. Cody and the captain took me to the aeronautical workshop. It was a huge hall, at least 200 feet long, and filled with great kites and the limp forms of parachutes hanging from the ceiling.
Look, Miss Dolly, my kites. Aren't they gorgeous? Would you like to sit in one?
Oh, yes. What fun. Oh, what a dear little seat.
There were balloons collapsed in lifeless heaps or stretched out across the floor, vast wicker baskets, and everywhere piles of netting and rope and hanks of cord of all sizes. Sewing machines were constantly whirring, and there was the most peculiar smell. Glue and canvas and hemp and dust. And as I plied them with questions, about the techniques and sensations of flying, about the balloons and parachutes, and how it felt to drop through the air, I noticed Captain Gordron began to smile.
Would you like to make a parachute descent?
Oh, yes! Oh, I'd love to. Oh, that would be wonderful.
Now, take my hands and squeeze them very tightly.
Sir? I really don't think...
Don't be shy. Come along now. Take my hands and squeeze as hard as you can.
Very well. I'm not hurting you, am I?
Not at all, as I thought. You have a good, strong grip. And you need that to be a parachutist.
Oh, I've always had strong arms. I was always a bit of a tomboy.
You need to be strong and healthy for this work.
Now look, Miss Shepherd. There's the trapeze bar that hangs from the parachute. You have to hold on to that as the balloon rises in the air.
I'm sure I can hold on easily enough, Captain.
Here. Get up on this box and see if you can reach the trapeze bar. Now, hold on to the bar. Bon. Hold on while I take the box away. Stay there.
I can hang on quite easily. My aunt probably wouldn't think it very ladylike.
Wait. Now, prepare yourself to let go and jump.
Trivia! Hey, you're good.
Oh, that was fun. Oh, when can I start?
Before you start, you must know how to fall. Never land standing up. The secret is to hold onto the back as soon as your feet hit the ground. And then throw the legs up. That's it. You go right over in a backward move. Can you do that?
I should think so. I'll have a jolly good try anyway.
Bon. Clap up there. Let's see you jump off the box. Backwards.
All right.
Hey.
Oh, goodness. What's this piece of webbing attached to the trapeze bar? Will that take my weight?
You mean the sling? Well, that takes some of your weight when you're hanging from the parachute. Here, let me show you. Look, you put one leg over the sling, and when the parachute rises under the balloon, the sling rises up between the legs. It helps take the weight of your body.
Now, let me explain what you have to do. The balloon is there, filled with gas and held by ropes. I will get in the basket with 3 or 4 passengers. You just sit on the rim with your legs hanging over the side, while you hold onto the rope with one hand and the trapeze bar with the other. Do you understand?
Yes, Captain. That seems simple enough. How will I know when to jump?
I shall be in the balloon with the passengers, so I tell you when to jump. And you float to the ground like an angel.
I'm not sure how angelic I'll feel. So, then I just have to remember how to land.
That's right.
Well, sounds easy enough. I'm sure I can do it. What will happen after I've landed?
Then the pony and trap picks you up and brings you back to the enclosure to show yourself to your admiring audience.
I don't know if I'm in a fit condition to show myself.
Do you think you'll be afraid?
No, of course I won't.
Yeah, at the moment just before you jump, perhaps then you'll worry.
I'm back. Auntie?
Hello, Dolly, dear.
Auntie, you'll never believe it. I'm going to make a parachute descent. I've got a simply splendid uniform, and Captain Gordron, he's the pilot, such a charming man, he'll come with me in the balloon. The parachute's attached to a balloon, and it goes up in the air, and I jump on a parachute. Isn't it exciting? Captain Gordron has given me my training already.
A parachute? Captain who?
Captain Gordron. He's famous. He's the French aeronaut. Don't you remember last year he delivered the first airmail letters to Britain?
You are not a letter, my girl. You're a respectable young lady.
And the uniform's lovely. Dark blue tunic with matching knickerbockers and a smart badge.
Knickerbockers? You wish to jump out of the sky in knickerbockers?
Yes.
Dolly,
Do stop chattering. Dismissed! Reflect for a moment. Listen to me. If you go ahead with these mountebank stunts, young lady, you will never enter my house again.
I didn't argue. I knew better than that. My aunt was an extremely spirited woman. She owned and ran the Ostrich Feather Emporium in Holborn, ruling it with a rod of iron. I worked in the Emporium, and rather than being more lenient with me, she seemed to expect more of me than the other girls. I bid my aunt good night and went to my room. For the next few days, as soon as I got home from work, I started cutting and rolling bandages. Auntie had an ulcer on her leg that I dressed for her every day. I rolled dozens of bandages, counted out bottles of lotion, and put them all in a cupboard outside the bathroom. Later on, I asked my aunt to come and look in the cupboard. Auntie, look. There are enough dressings here to last for 3 months.
What the hell's that for?
For your leg. I'm going to make my first jump very soon. Now, as you said I should not enter your house again, I've prepared a good supply of everything you'll need for dressing your leg. See, there's enough lotion for a few months, and the bandages are here.
Dolly! You really are most trying. Very well. You know I don't like it. Those dreadful displays. You'll be making a spectacle of yourself, and I don't know what your mother will have to say, but... All right. You can go up. But, Dolly, just don't talk about it. Ever. Tell me 2 days beforehand, but I don't wish to hear any vulgar tales. Nor do I wish to see you in knickerbockers.
The way was open to the skies. As I changed into my aeronautical outfit, I wasn't frightened. I was excited. Butterflies? Maybe a few. I was worried I might let the captain down. Would I get the landing right? That seemed to be the most difficult thing. I didn't mind a broken leg, but what a fool I would look being carried back wearing a splint.
She was tall, very attractive, 5'10", and she had a wasp waist, and she'd have a parachute badge on the lapel of the jacket, high peak cap, and balloon insignia, and gold trimmings, and high-legged boots, of course. Always navy blue. Oh yes, no one went into the air other than in navy blue. And of course, in those days, it was a dreadful thing to see a woman in a knickerbocker suit. So she used to have a long skirt, which she would put over the knickerbockers when she was walking around, and then, of course, discard the skirt when she went into the air.
I made my way into the balloon enclosure through the crowd. I wasn't nervous. I knew I could do it. But could I do it well? The magnificent golden balloon swayed and tugged gently at its tethers, with the gas pipe still attached. It seemed impatient to be away, eager for the freedom of the skies. Expectant faces completely ringed the enclosure. Captain Gaudron, immaculate in his uniform, was busy escorting the 4 passengers towards the basket.
This way, please, gentlemen. Dolly, come along now. It's time to go.
I tightened my gold sash and made my way among the ropes to the balloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are my 4 passengers for today. And may I present the intrepid Miss Dolly Shepherd.
Good day. Good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, votre attention, s'il vous plaît. Today, for the first time at the Alexandra Palace, this fearless young lady will ascend with us in this splendid balloon, and then leap from the basket and descend thousands of feet through the air, supported only by the parachute you see before you. I give you the delightful, the courageous Miss Dolly Shepherd. Get up on the basket. On the edge. That's right. Let your legs dangle. All right?
Yes, Captain.
Hold on tight to the rope as we go up. Now, steady. Hands up!
The faces of the men holding the ropes just drifted away. There was no feeling of movement at all. It was as if the balloon was still, and the crowd beneath was falling gently away from under the basket. It was wonderful. Their faces and waving hands and hats and parasols got slowly smaller and smaller. I didn't wave back. I was too busy holding on tight. But I didn't feel anxious. It was so beautiful. So quiet up there. All the tiny dolls' houses below us were rolling away, and the parks and streets and fields.
There's Muswell Hill, and Hornsey there, those fields and parks. And Old Southgate to the north there.
And down there, to the east, see the marshes? That's the Lee Valley.
Look at the alley pally. It's tiny.
Isn't it? Just think. There are all those thousands of people down there doing ordinary things. And here we are, floating above their heads.
And it's so quiet. I can't believe how quiet it is.
We are about 2,000 feet, Dolly. Get ready to jump. Look, there's a nice green field over there. Remember how to land. Now, go!
It opened. I looked up at the parachute above me. At that moment, it was my dearest friend in all the world, floating peacefully above me. I almost wanted to talk to it, but instead I just gave it a huge smile. It was like a silken dome, billowing as though it was breathing, as though it was glad to be alive too. I looked down. Between my boots and the now distant earth, there was nothing. I swung my feet and laughed. I was walking on air. Oh, I felt as light and as free as a butterfly. It was wonderful. Oh, and then I saw the field and remembered I'd still got to land. I've done it. I've done it. No broken bones. I've done it. And I'd like to go right back up and do it again.
In those pioneering days, of course, the crowd used to gather round the balloon enclosure, and part of the entertainment was the opportunity of chatting to the parachutist. So Dolly would go dressed in very elegant clothes, and she'd go round chatting to the crowd while they were watching the filling of the balloon. Now that could take anything between 2 and 4 hours, so that it was all part and parcel of the entertainment. And then when the balloon was just about ready to ascend, she disappeared, changed into her parachuting outfit. And of course when she went up as a friend. She wasn't just a speck in the sky. She went up as a friend, and they were waiting for her to come back, because of course they didn't know where she was going to land. But the pony and trap always followed the balloon and brought her back, and hopefully the balloon as well. And so she came back usually to a bandstand. As the captain used to say, show yourself to the crowd to show that you've come back safely. so that it was almost a family affair. And of course, where she was well known, people used to come because it was Dolly Shepherd.
Welcome to Caulfield, ladies and gentlemen. And on this beautiful evening, we have the renowned, the redoubtable Miss Dolly Shepherd, who is scheduled to make a brave balloon ascent, followed by a daring solo descent by parachute. Please, a warm round of applause for this plucky, this audacious, this utterly admirable young lady.
Hello? Hello? Where is that balloon you're going up in?
Over there on the ground. It's being filled with gas. See the pipe? It looks a funny shape now, doesn't it?
It's like a sleepy animal waking up. Will it really turn into a proper balloon?
It'll be the most wonderful balloon you've ever seen.
Are you really going up in it?
Not exactly in it, but underneath it. Attached to that parachute, you see, stretched out there on the grass.
Will that wake up as well?
I jolly well hope so.
How long will it take you to go up and come down?
Oh, about 5 or 6 minutes to go up and about 4 to come down.
And how high will you go?
On a clear day like this, probably about 4,000 feet. How wrong I was. I checked each fold of the parachute as it lay stretched out on the grass, while Captain Gaudron attached the crown of the chute to the balloon. Then I took my place. I loved the sensation as the balloon took off and swept me from the ground. I smiled down at the sea of upturned faces, waving the little Union Jack flag I always waved. It was one of those balmy summer evenings, with barely a breath of wind. I savoured one of those moments of inexplicable joy, swaying beneath my big, silvery companion. All too soon, I reached 4,000 feet and pulled the ripping cord. Nothing happened. I pulled again. Still nothing. I pulled again and again, but still I swung at the end of my unopened parachute. Now what do I do? The balloon ignored me. It just continued to rise in its leisurely manner. The pin must have jammed in the release mechanism. I looked up, and for a moment I felt sick as I saw that the flap had blown inside the neck of the balloon, so the gas couldn't escape either. My heart dropped. I kept looking at the aneroid on my wrist. Amazingly, it wasn't long before I was over 12,000 feet. How cold it was. I knew I must hang on, but my arms were aching. I thought of my father, who always sang if things got a bit sticky. There is a happy land far, far away, where saints in glory stand, bright, bright as day. How small my voice sounded. What an insignificant speck I was. Goodbye, Dolly, I must leave you, though it breaks my heart to go. Then the light dimmed, and I was enveloped in a clammy shroud. I had entered a cloud. It was cold, frightening. I could just see my hands on the bar. I had to hang on. But I soon came out into another world. A silence and space, floored with a fleecy white carpet and the dome of the purple skies. Just cloud and space and me. Was I the first person ever to have seen this magical, silent world above the clouds? I felt that I was very close to God. I looked at my aneroid. It read 15,000 feet and still rising. But it was so cold. One at a time, I bit the ends of my fingers to keep them awake. I mustn't let them go to sleep, or I would fall. I was hardly aware of the passage of time. The sky turned yellow, then red, then it slowly faded into blackness. The moon came out to relieve my solitude, but I couldn't read my aneroid. I guessed I was about 3 miles above the earth, if it was still there.
If you should plant a seed of love in the garden of your heart,
I thought my mind was slipping.
would it grow?
It was time to go.
Your great big love someday, only to die and fade away.
I fought my way out of the dream world into which I was slipping. I tried to tighten my grip on the bar. It was a real band, not a heavenly one, playing in the darkness below. I was coming down. I clung on as the black turned to grey, and suddenly I was lying on soft grass. The bar slipped from my deadened fingers, and the balloon disappeared into the night, trailing the empty parachute like a giant bat.
When you think of parachuting today, or anything to do with the air, you cannot go beyond 12,000 feet without oxygen. So if you can imagine that she was going up to over 15,000 feet at night, hanging onto a trapeze bar with your weight hanging onto your arms and all on your own. Of course, when we were discussing it and people were saying how wonderful it was and what stamina, she said, yes, but anyone would have done the same thing. As she said, life is precious, and you do hold on to the last minute.
Louis May worked with me in the ostrich feather emporium owned by my aunt. She loved to hear about my aeronautical exploits and said she desperately wanted to try a jump, but it would have to be kept secret from her family and her fiancé. She was a strong girl with bags of spirit, so I introduced her to Captain Gaudron. He agreed to let her jump and gave her the same training that I'd had.
You all right, Louis?
I'm just so excited.
It'll be fun going down with you.
I can't wait.
Let's check our parachutes while Captain Gaudron prepares a balloon. Then we can talk to the crowd.
And off.
Oh. Oh, I wouldn't have missed this for anything.
Oh. Well, we're touching on 3,000 feet. How do you feel? You ready to pull away?
I'm fine. Now I know why you always enjoyed your trip so much. It's blooming wonderful. I'll pull away now. Nothing's happening.
Try again. Pull harder.
I can't get away. What shall I do?
Don't panic, Louis. Try once more.
Something must have been wrong with the release mechanism. The balloon was soaring upwards towards the gathering clouds. We were nearly at 8,000 feet.
Hang on, Louis. Whatever you do, hang on. The gas will seep out and we'll come down in a while.
Dolly, have you ever had any trouble getting away?
Yes. But I came down all right.
after 3 hours. I wondered if she could hang on that long. It was her first time. We floated up into a cold fog, clouds. I could just see Louis hanging like a ghost from her trapeze. I hoped it would cheer her up when we broke through the clouds to the other side. The earth slowly disappeared in the fog. As we came up out of the cloud, I could see her more clearly. But she looked really terrified.
Look up, Louis. Don't look down. Keep looking up.
11,000 feet, and we were still rising. The air was freezing. How long would it be before we started to come down? I had no idea. Louis was deathly white. Her lips were turning blue. I realized I had to do something.
Louis, you're very plucky. Don't worry, I won't leave you. I've made up my mind. You're coming down on my parachute.
Am I?
Do as I tell you. I'm going to pull you to me by this cord between us.
All right.
Good. Now, you've got to get your belt undone. Hold tightly to the bar with one hand, and with our free hands we'll undo the belt.
It's off.
Now, hold my bar with one hand, and keep holding yours with the other. That's it. Now take your legs out of the sling and put them round my waist. One at a time. Yes? Now, move your other hand to my bar. Now you'll have to put your arms round my neck. One at a time.
Can you take my weight?
Quickly. Now. Good. Now, if you've never said a prayer before, say one now. I'm going to pull away. Now!
We hurtled through the air with the parachute streaming behind us, hanging on for dear life, and it opened as we came through the clouds.
You're all right, Louis. It's open. You hang on.
I looked to see where we were going to land. Of course, we were coming down much faster than usual. Much faster.
Oh, no, road!
Oh, my teeth are knocked out.
They weren't, of course. Louis had landed on top of me, and she got up straight away. We were beside the road, about 6 feet away from an upturned scythe. A near miss indeed. Louis was jumping up and down, but something was telling me to lie very still. I could feel no pain, but somehow I knew I was badly hurt.
Dolly, are you all right? Look, there's someone coming.
A farmer, Mr. Hollins, came. Then he sent for a doctor, who arrived on a pony and trap. They carried me back to the farmhouse on a door they'd taken off its hinges. The farmer's wife and all the children trooped along beside me. I could feel invisible wires pulling more and more tightly at my mouth. I could hear them talking, but it was a dream world.
She looks badly twisted. Then, I'll you just rest. We'll look at it.
I was semi-conscious for 3 days.
Take some milk. This'll do you good.
Then the doctor decided to try to straighten my twisted spine. On the 4th day, they wedged a knotted handkerchief between my teeth so I wouldn't bite my tongue. Then they positioned themselves, one at each end, got hold, and pulled. The pain was excruciating. Once the ordeal was over, More brandy and milk was called for. The men were sweating like horses. I was still paralysed, but at least my body was straight. I was never left alone in the room. The farmer's wife and daughters nursed me night and day. The paralysis slowly left my mouth, but I was yellow from the waist down, and I couldn't move my legs. But I was determined to jump again, once I got better. During the days I spent lying in the farmhouse, a locum doctor came to see me. "Doctor, I'm feeling so well in myself. When am I going to be able to walk?"
Oh, haven't they told you? I'm afraid you're not going to be able to walk again. They're trying to get you transferred to a hospital for incurables.
A hospital for incurables?
Lassie, what's the matter?
Dr. Allen, I can't believe it. That doctor said I'd never walk again.
I don't believe that. Don't upset yourself. There is some hope, Dolly. Will you let me try a wee experiment?
I was laid face down, while Dr. Allen attached large metal plates to my back and legs.
These wires connect the battery to the plates.
The farmer and his family watched as Dr. Allen manipulated his gadgets, looked at his watch, and adjusted his machine. Perspiration dripped from the farmer's face. Suddenly, something seemed to jab me in the back. It had taken far longer than he expected, but Dr. Allen seemed very pleased that I had at least felt something. The battery treatment was repeated every day, and by the end of the week, I was able to sit up. Slowly, the sensation returned to my legs. Then the Hollins family, bless them, worked so hard. Farmer Hollins fixed ropes to the beams in the farmhouse.
Come on now, doll.
And every day, they helped me to walk, moving my feet along for me as I held onto the ropes.
Come on. That's the way. Come on.
Within weeks, I was managing to walk unaided. And with all the healthy food and loving care from the farmer's family, I was soon thinking about jumping again. I wrote to Captain Gaudron to tell him I would fulfill a contract for Ashby de la Zouche. Of course, he was concerned, but he let me make the jump, with a doctor in attendance, and all went well. I continued my career quite happily until 1912, when, once again, I made a jump at the Alexandra Palace. I strolled through the crowd as the balloon was inflated, enjoying my conversations with the people gathered to watch. The sky was clear, and I was looking forward to having all that blue space to myself. When the captain indicated that all was ready, I took up my position astride the sling and gripped the trapeze bar.
Let's go!
I waved my flag as usual as I soared over the twin towers of the palace, looking down on the well-known landscape below. I felt very much at peace with the world, enjoying the solitude and silence that I loved so much. Suddenly, that silence was broken.
Don't come up again, or you'll be killed.
Just once. The voice spoke just once. I looked around me. The sky was quite empty. I remained very still and calm, swinging in the silence. I looked down at the earth below. It was so beautiful, so remote, so peaceful.
All right.
I pulled the ripping cord and fell until the parachute filled with air.
I won't be jumping again.
Oh, yes, you will.
But you didn't hear the voice. I handed my silk Union Jack to a surprised and delighted admirer, and my cap to another, and my parachute badge to a young boy. As soon as I was back at Auntie's house, I rolled up my parachuting costume and put it in the rag bag. Calmly, I told my aunt that my parachuting days were over. Thank God, she said. I did.
My mother was as good as her word, and having said that she wouldn't go up again, she didn't. But she had no regrets. She'd had a good life, she'd enjoyed it, and now she was looking to the future, whatever that might bring. She lived a long and happy life and died in 1983, just before her 97th birthday. Sometimes people have asked me if it is not difficult to live up to a person of my mother's standing. And I can't say yes or no, because to me, she's always been my very dear mother. And we've always been friends, and she's never at any time ever thrust anything upon me. And quite the opposite, I've had to draw all these stories from her. Well, this year is the 95th anniversary of the Midday Rescue, and 5 years ago I commemorated the 90th, and I'm hoping that I shall again be able to make another parachute descent with the Red Devils. I'm hoping. Of course, when I do it, I have to do it in tandem, because, unfortunately, I'm not exactly a youngster. I shall be 83 in October. But that is nothing. When I made my first one, I'm sure she was there, because I had no qualms whatsoever. Oh, she's there.
In Dolly Shepherd, the Edwardian parachute queen, Dolly was played by Eve Best, Captain Gaudron by Alan Bourgoin, and Samuel Franklin Cody by David Brooks. Auntie Mariam was played by Bonnie Hurren, and Louis May by Sally Cookson. Other parts were played by John Mackay, Chris Donnelly, and Jonathan Nibbs. Dolly Shepherd, the Edwardian parachute queen, was adapted by Rachel Bentham and directed in Bristol by Kate McCall.